Hi creative friends, this is Soraya and thank you so much for being here. So I am going to do a series. This is going to be part one of a tutorial from start to finish. So I am working on Bristol paper and I will list all of the products that I'm using in the description below. And normally what I do is I start um, my first layer off with circles, but what I'm going to do today is I'm going to add collage. Now I'm still going to use my circles, but the very first thing I'm going to do is build up my page with some collage. Now this is just a couple of dictionary pages that I have, and I really love using text. It's very neutral. It's, it reads as gray-ish, and I just love it. It adds so much interest right away to your page without you really having to do anything. And whether it gets covered up in the final piece or not, it's still there. It's still lending all of its beauty and interest to the page. So I'm just going to add it on very haphazardly, almost like I'm not thinking about my subsequent layers or what kind of image I'm going to put on the page. I'm really not thinking about that. Now if you wanted to plan it out, then that's totally up to you, but just the way I work, I like to be very kind of loosey-goosey and spontaneous, especially in the first layers. So as you can see, just that little bit of collage has already, lent the page so much character. So I just love that about collage. So I'm just using my Mod Podge. And I think I've explained this before, but the reason why I use Mod Podge is because I use so much glue that, if I had to use a Liquitex, it just gets to be way more expensive. I think for this 32 full ounce jar of Mod Podge, it's about $15. It used to be much cheaper, but now I think it's gotten to be more expensive. But the Liquitex is even more expensive because, it's just the name brand and what have you, and it's Liquitex, so it's just more pricey. But the Mod Podge is archival, because I received a comment a short while ago stating that the Mod Podge, the person who left the comment, they did not use Mod Podge because it was not archival, but that's not true. I've never had an issue with Mod Podge turning yellow or anything like that. And if you research it, you'll find that Mod Podge is actually archival. And I think it's also non-toxic, so that's good to know. So I don't have to wait for the Mod Podge to dry before I add, say, some paints, or I can even use my Stabilo over top of this. I do not have to allow it to completely dry. There are some media that don't go very well over top of this right away, but paints are not one of them. So the very first thing I want to do is I am going to use my, I have a couple of Inktense pencils, and I have a blue Stabilo and a black Stabilo. So what I'm going to do is I am going to make my circles, but I'm going to use my Stabilo pencil. So all I'm doing is just making my circles. I want good energy. I want to be in the flow, and I'm still having fun and being curious and not thinking about anything else, but just being present to what's going on. And For this particular layer, the first and second layers, which I consider to be my first layers, I want to be in beginner's mind. And what that means to me is being in a state of humility and curiosity and almost childlike. Because what I want to do is I simply want to infuse my page with joy and playfulness and just a simplicity almost. Like I want to kind of forget things that I know and things that I've learned, because that's where the magic happens. And each layer determines the subsequent layers. So to me, the first layers are super, super important because it's going to affect the second layer and then the third layer and right until completion. So I want this sense of energy to be in all of my layers. And now I'm going to take my black Stabilo and just make some marks here. And I want there to be happy accidents. I want there to be splashes and splatters and unexpected, accidents. I really want whatever kind of marks and lines and color combinations that are spontaneous and uncontrived and not predicted. I want that to happen because all the decisions, like what stays, what goes, etc., they happen in the middle layers and the last layers as well, but they mostly start to happen in the middle layers. So the first layers are just about just letting go. And normally I'm listening to, music or a podcast or a YouTube video. So it's just very relaxing and meditative. Now, these pencils, Stabilo pencils, they are supposed to go over anything, but when the Mod Podge is wet, there is a little bit of difficulty going over it. But now these Inktense pencils, I don't know, see the Inktense pencils are going over the Mod Podge, so perhaps I'll use these instead. And you can even use your non-dominant hand to make marks. You get some really interesting lines that are different from when you use your dominant hand. You can like write text or, the sky's the limit really. So as you can see, I really haven't done a whole lot here. I've only used a few materials, my collage and my Stabilo pencil and my Inktense pencil. I haven't even added any paint onto the page yet. So I set up some paint off to the side here. I have a phthalo blue, I think it's a cad red, and a cad red light, which is actually an orange, but it's called a cadmium red light. So I'm gonna start off with these colors here. And I think I'm gonna go with the orange. And I wanna just drag it through this blue here. Now, orange and blue is one of my favorite color combinations because it's those are complementary colors. It just has a lot of zing to it, and it's like probably my very favorite combination to use. And maybe I overuse it sometimes. So here I'm just making circles with my paint. And I'm gonna allow everything to dry naturally because I just love the kind of organic paint quality when it dries by itself, because the heating tool can tend to flatten out the colors a little bit. So now I'm gonna add some of this red here. So at this point, my first layer, it's looking very, just very, to me, it looks very raw and almost like, you know, a 3-year-old did it, which is great. That's what I want. So I'm on track. And I just urge you that when you're making your first layers, a lot of times, especially when I first started, I would get so consumed with fear about the first layer, about the fear of the blank page, about me wasting my art materials, about me not knowing what on earth I was doing, just etc., etc. Like the inner critic would come out. I felt like I had to have everything planned out, and my work was very, very stilted. And I absolutely cringe now when I look back on that work, but you know, I realized that it was a stepping stone, and I had to be there for me to be here, perhaps. But I just urge you to let go in this first layer, especially, and just relax and just have fun and just, you know, be in the moment. Listen to your intuition. And the thing is, if you know what your visual language is, if you are constantly in dialogue with yourself and a studio log about the things that you love, the things that make you happy and joyful and speak to you, then you are going to be true to yourself, because you're always going to be drawn to certain things. And for me, it's circles. I love circles. I love dots. And I love certain colors. I love certain marks. I love text. So these are all things that, you know, remain constant no matter what I'm doing, where I'm painting, whether it's in my art journal or a canvas or, you know, a repurposed book. So these things are always constant because I know what my visual language is, and I pay attention to it, and I listen to my, you know, my intuition. So I really urge you to start a studio log. And I learned this when I went to Oaxaca with Connie Solera, and she talked about a studio log and having conversations with our paint, having conversations with ourselves, writing things down, and just knowing ourselves, knowing what we love. That's really, really important. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to add some pink, and I love this Holbein Luminous Opera. So I think I'm going to add just a little bit of this pink here. Oh, I popped out a little bit too much, but that's okay. I'm just gonna smush that over there. Okay, so now that this looks like a really juicy mess, I am going to leave this alone, let it dry, and this is going to be the end of this video. So this is going to be part 1 of my painting from scratch. So I'm doing it, you know, doing a painting from the first layer to the last layer. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.